first, when it's safe to do so, be in an office, but also write about and cover my own community, write about the people who are really my neighbors, like write about what's happening here and going out and experiencing the world around me a bit more rather than simply, seeing it behind my screen. I don't know what's going to make us happy or not. Like that's such it's such an impossible question to answer. Like, will this make me happy? But you probably can answer the question, will this enlarge my life? Will this expand my world?
Welcome to the Mindful and Dream podcast, where we help you to not decide what's really important while chasing your dreams. Today's guest is Michelle Wu, who was the editor of Forge, the medium publication all about self-help and self-development. She's had a varied history as both a journalist and an editor, and she even published her own book called Horizontal Parenting: How to Entertain Your Kids, which received rave reviews. In her role as the editor of Forge, she's read hundreds of thousands of articles by people trying to help other people to grow, and she has to look at them and work out what's really going to make a difference, what's actually going to help the reader, which makes her a perfect guest for my show. Since this interview was recorded, she's now left Medium and is now head of the travel section at the Los Angeles Times. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Welcome to Mindful and Driven, Michelle. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Amar.
So how I know you is because you worked with me on Forge, and you were the editor for multiple years. And when I was coming up as a writer, it was always the place where I wanted to get into, where I wanted to publish and share my work. And for people not familiar, Forge is all about self-help and personal growth. And you were the key person in there to moderate and curate in terms of all the people sending in their ideas. And you had to decide what's going to be best for the audience, what's going to help the most people. Along the way, was there any advice that you saw come up quite frequently that you really disagreed with and you thought that wasn't helping people?
Anything that was pure, like hustle, go big or go home. I recently saw this great tweet that said, so if I don't go big, does that mean I get to go home? And I really like that because, so much of the culture is just like, be the best you could be. Like, yeah, we should definitely be our best, but at what cost? Like, does that mean, working till, the wee hours of the morning, working at the sake of your mental health, of your sleep, of your sanity, anything that was just pure, like climbing the ladder. I just wanted to definitely for Forge, take a more empathetic approach, a more like balanced approach to self-help and personal development. I think that was kind of like pure hustle, I would say, wasn't kind of our jam.
Yeah, and I think what I find quite often is that a lot of people give that advice, and sometimes it's almost to justify it to themselves because they're working crazy hours and they're ignoring their friends and they're neglecting their relationships. And they need to be able to prove to themselves, and if other people can believe them, that it's all worth it because the hustle is worth it and being successful is all that matters. And sometimes I wonder if those people they're writing the article really for themselves, to tell themselves or to lie to themselves in some way that what they're doing is okay when they're sacrificing their health and they're sacrificing their mental health. And sometimes it's almost a circle where there's people who have that frame of mind who then write those kind of articles or share those kind of stories. And then the other people in that circle then see that and like, yeah, I've got to do that as well. And sometimes it's become really toxic, as you said. And it's not empathetic, it's not thinking about different people's circumstances.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think that's kind of the way I thought early on. Like the way you live a life is you set a goal, and then you mold your life in a way that could help you achieve that goal. But as I've, grown older and have, I have two kids and I just like have a bit less bandwidth for that mentality. I really learned that a better way, or the way I would prefer to live my life, is to imagine the ideal life that I want to live. Like, imagine my ideal day from start to finish. Like, this is how I want to live my life. And then find a way to work to, like, have my work fuel that day rather than the other way around. Like, rather than working to fulfill a goal, having like finding a way to just make enough money or have enough resources to support that day I want to have every day.
In the past, was there ever a time where you felt really far away from that ideal day and you're working hard, but when you thought about it and sat down, you're like, wait, why am I doing this? Did you have any periods like that?
Yeah, I will say, yeah. So I was the parenting editor at Lifehacker for a few years, and I really loved the job. Like, I loved writing about parenting and parenting hacks every day. I was an editor, but also like the lead writer for the section. And it was fun because I got to be myself. I got to use my writing voice. Like, I got to have fun. I got to write about what I knew, which was, well, not necessarily what I knew, but what I wanted to explore, which is how to raise children. I had so many questions. I got to talk to great experts about everything from, I don't know, potty training to like how to teach your kids to be kind. I found great value in it, but I think I got to a point where I was writing more about parenting, and in this writing world, in this reporting world, more than I was actually parenting my kids. And I try to just, yeah, fit my family life into this perfect narrative, but the whole balance wasn't there. And I feel like I just got to a point where I had written as much as I could, and I finally just needed to step back and like actually do the thing, like do like be the mom, be the parent. Um and yeah, it was like a little bit of burnout and just feeling like I've reached the maximum. Like I've reached.
Was that a sudden realization, or did it take you a bit of time where you felt that it wasn't quite right? You felt that you were going down the wrong path and then you changed course? Or was there a sudden moment that was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and you looked for something else?
I think it was, yeah, it was gradual. I don't know. Sometimes I wish that as writers, well, some this great line I heard by Amanda Palmer. She's a singer songwriter, part of the Dresden Dolls. She says that as creative people, we should have inhale years and exhale years. So exhale years are when we produce. We create the thing we want to create. We're like doing it. We're writing. We're like in the zone. But then we also need inhale years, which are years where we could just observe and live and like take in life, live life. So not only for the purpose of like having content later on, but just, yeah, just to maintain like a balance. I think that that's like a really interesting way to look at it, and I wish that I could live life that way. It's hard when you have like, you can't really like, maybe we can. I mean, maybe we're rethinking everything, but traditionally you can't just like have a job for a year, take a year off, like have another, have a job for a year, take a year off. But like ideally there should be some sort of built-in breaks, you know what I mean? Like there I would love to see that. I would love to live my life as a creative that way.
I think sometimes people often think about sprints, but the problem is that it's sprint after sprint after sprint. There's no gap in between. And I think that's something that's missing from like a lot of projects or the way people look at life is, yes, you can have a different sprint, but then you need to have the other period of like reflection afterwards, right? And that's what the slower years are. And maybe it's not a year at a time, maybe it's a few months, or maybe it's a few weeks at a time. Or maybe it's even within the same week sometimes for some people, if they can have it focus work for a few days and the rest of the time they let themselves relax. And I always think about that as well in terms of how do you create that kind of built-in rest time? Because often rest is where your best ideas come from,
I agree.
where you zone out, you look at the bigger picture, you're able to appreciate the world a bit more, and then you get those great ideas.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I think like the most productive people, they know how to put white space on their calendar for the week. Like they block off chunks of time where they're like, no meetings could be scheduled here, like no random doctor's appointments, like nothing. This is my time to have space to walk, to think, to write, to just have it be like a blank page.
You went after Life Hacker, you went on to other roles, and you were working at Medium for quite a while. And now you've got a new role, right, at the LA Times. And is there anything about your kind of lifestyle that you want to change while you're at the LA Times compared to when you're at Medium? So now you've got this opportunity, I guess, to make a change where changing jobs gives you that moment of pause and you think, well, is this the routine I want, or is this a different routine that would be better? Are there any changes you're making in that regard?
LA Times is, I believe it is a bit more like the traditional newsroom where, I'd go into an office. I've done a lot of different things, but yeah, I've freelanced before, so I've definitely created my own schedule at times, and so I'm not sure how much I'd be able to do that going forward. But the reason why I was so drawn to the LA Times, we were chatting a bit before, was that so I've been working remotely for about 9 years, like ever since my daughter was born. And I've worked for various companies, and most of the time my colleagues were on, in different time zones. I've been, here in this like little office all day. I've definitely missed being among humans. And the LA Times, like, I think the pandemic has really shown me how important it is to rely on my community, on my neighbors, and working at the LA Times, a place that's local. I'm really excited about the opportunity to first, when it's safe to do so, be in an office, but also write about and cover my own community, write about the people who are really my neighbors, like write about what's happening here and going out and experiencing the world around me a bit more rather than simply, seeing it behind my screen. And so that's something that I want more of in my life. So there's this great quote in Oliver Berkman's last column for The Guardian, where he was a columnist for a very long time. And he writes, when stumped by a life choice, choose enlargement over happiness. And I just really love that. I really love like because we don't know what's going to make us happy or not. Like that's such a yeah, it's such an impossible question to answer. Like, will this make me happy? But you probably can answer the question, will this enlarge my life? Will this expand my world?
We were talking before about how you've done the opposite of what many people have done and what many people experienced in the pandemic because you worked for 9 years from home. And many people are at the beginning of that working from home or flexible working experience who might think, oh, it's amazing for different reasons. And what's interesting is that you want to go back to the other world again because you've realized how important community is and how much those add value to your life. And obviously, I think you started working from home because of the birth of your first child. And now, like, you've realized that, while that was good for a time, now you've got a different experience you want to try. For people who are working from home now, what kind of habits and things did you do that helped you to find balance during the normal working day?
While working at home, yeah, something that a lot of us did at Forge and just at Medium in general was we encouraged each other to take walks during the day. And so on Slack, we would put up a little like walking person on our avatar. And so that I thought that was really nice. I'm like, oh, this person's taking a walk right now. Like I should do that at some point too. And yeah, doing that definitely allowed us to come back with a bit more clarity for the rest of our days. So that was great. Some other habits, I would say, just starting the day. I mean, like I was never great at starting the day with like a, you know, ritual or like a morning routine. But I know that on the days when I did do like certain things, like I did feel better. Like in the mornings, those days when I would write for, I would try to make myself just free write for 3 pages. And it could just be anything I was thinking about, like just a big brain dump. On those days when I was able to sit myself down and make that happen, like I felt like my day was better and clearer. Also, on days when I, like, cheesy to say, like, try to make myself feel grateful for the things I had, or just recall like certain moments of my life that I was grateful for, that really helped. And also, I think something called like 3 to Thrive, just writing down like the top 3 things that I really needed to do no matter what. Those were my 3 to Thrive items. And doing that like really gave myself focus.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I want to take a quick break to ask you to check in on yourself. There's many people struggling with balance, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. The tips that my guests and I share can hopefully help you along the way, but if you already feel overwhelmed or burnt out, it's probably best that you ask somebody for help too. For some, this might be a friend or family member, but others might feel like they have nobody they can talk to. If you're one of these people, check out the link in the show notes. It's for United for Global Mental Health. They've got helplines all across the world with people willing to listen on the other side. It's important to let somebody know how you're feeling. Now, back to the show. And obviously you wrote a book while you're working at the same time, and that's been released now. And from my understanding, it's all about parenting, and well, you can explain it better than I can. What's the book about, and how did you find the time to do it during your day?
So I have a book, my first book out. It's called Horizontal Parenting: How to Entertain Your Kid While Lying Down. And it was an idea that I first had while I was working at Lifehacker. I had written an article called How to Entertain Your Kid While Lying Down. And an amazing thing happened where a book editor stumbled upon my article as she was Googling, like, I guess her daughter was she was homesick with the flu, and she still had to take care of her daughter. So she was Googling how to entertain your kid while lying down, and she stumbled across my article, and she reached out and was like, "Hey, this would make an amazing book. Like, what do you think?" And the rest is kind of history. But I did write it a lot during the pandemic. Well, I was working at Medium, but I really have to give great credit to my husband, who would take the kids out of the house on weekends, like Saturday mornings, so I could write. Yeah, if I didn't have that support system, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do this. And so I really think just being transparent with the support that we all have is just really important, in like helping others feel like there's a reason why they, yeah, like if they too don't have those same supports, they might feel like, there's something wrong with them. Like, why aren't they able to achieve certain things? So I think we really just do need to share what the privileges that we have. And like one privilege that I have was having my husband.
There's a tweet I saw the other day which is about how I got funded for my startup, and then it said, I took cold showers at 5 a.m. I ran 10 miles every day. I networked. And then the final point was, and my dad is a venture capitalist.
Yes.
Exactly, you said. It's like sometimes people can always put emphasis on the lessons that everybody can use. But it's really important to give that context of you had help and there were people around you who enabled you to do that. And I think sometimes the lesson in that as well is that it's really important to try and get help and to try and look for people around you and surround yourself with the people who can support you. Because if everybody thinks that people are doing it alone, then they can feel shame if they feel like they need help, or if they try to do it while juggling everything. So I think it's really important what you said there, to say, yeah, I had help. Like, it's really important these other people were involved because they allowed me to do my best work. And if there's anybody out there who's like, oh, I want to write a book, but there's no chance I can do it, or I can't do it while juggling other things, think about like other people who do it do have help. So work out, like, is there anything you can do to give yourself those pockets of time?
I've seen various, calculators, like what is 1 hour of my time worth? Like, so is it worth it to outsource house cleaning, or it just, various chores and responsibilities that we often think like of course we have to do, or I think like there's definitely this cost benefit and analysis that we could do with everything.
And I think sometimes what people miss out of that equation as well is the clarity you get from having less tasks. So even if the pure monetary terms, you can add things up. But if you've only got 3 things to do in a day rather than 7 things, then you can do those 3 things better because you don't have to context switch so much. And I think it's something to kind of factor into that analysis of when you're looking at the cost benefits is if I don't have to spend 10 minutes doing that or having a break doing that, could I get in a better flow state? And then the other hours I have, I can use more productively.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
yeah, and I just think that's something which people can forget. It's like, oh, but I can't afford this. But it's like maybe because you're spending that money or you're getting people to do something for you, it means that the things you are doing already can expand so much, like you said, and that will cover you. So it's not a straight equation in some ways. There is some exponentials in there, and there's funny divisions that are going on as well. And like at the moment, well, you're not going back to the office just yet, but what are you working on in your balance at the moment? What's something you're trying to solve?
I would say, I mean, yeah, as I have a bit of time, like before I jump into my new role, I want to get a better handle on my inbox. That was has always been it's always been something that I feel has been crushing to for me and something that I just avoid. Like I've signed up for way too many newsletters, and I definitely need maybe a separate inbox or something for that, like these promotions. So that's something I'm definitely struggling with. I've seen some good systems that I want to implement. I don't know if it's inbox zero or what, but like if it takes you 5 seconds or less to do, you reply right away. If it's going to take you more, you like reroute the email to a certain box, like to do today, to do this week boxes. This is probably very elementary for you, but I've always kind of struggled with emails.
So I had the same problem, and what I've done recently is that inbox zero, where the only things that are in my main email box are things that I actually have to do something for. So at the moment, I've got 3 emails in my like inbox, and those are things where I need to reply to them, and there's an action for me. Everything else is in the archive or it's in different folders, and you can always search and find those emails again. But to just open my email box and only see 3 emails, it just feels really good. And there was something else you mentioned there as well. I'm trying to remember. So with in terms of like replying to people and with the newsletters. So what I do with newsletters is that with Google, like Gmail, you can do the plus. So after your email address, before the @ symbol, you can put a plus. And then I put plus newsletter. So whenever I sign up to a newsletter, I use that email address, and then I've set up a system or like a rule in Gmail. That means that anything that comes into that email address with a newsletter in it goes to a separate folder. And what happens is I never read any of those newsletters. I think I've got like 100 unread emails in the newsletter folder. But one day, if I'm bored or if I'm looking for something inspirational, I can just flip through those. But it stops it from going into my main email box because then my main email box is a bit more structured and organized.
Uh-huh. That's so
And yeah,
good. So what are some of your folders?
all right. So how I do the folders? So I've got about 7 email accounts, and that helps as well because there's one just for medium emails, pretty much. There's my personal one, which has like my Deliveroo and my orders for food and things like that that go into there. So they're not work; it's like more personal related emails. Then I have the business email account, and that's one which I'm much more protective over, and I work out which folders to go into. But how I do the folders is I actually have one folder called literally cool, and another one called meh. So when an opportunity comes in, and whether or not it's exciting, I put it into one of those 2 folders.
That's hilarious. That's amazing. I love
And
that.
I think the problem is if anybody's listening to this and I haven't replied to you in about 3 months, that's probably because I put you into a folder. Sorry about that. But that's the system that works for me. Just a quick decision, because sometimes if you've got too many folders, then it's mental energy to try to work out what folder to put things into. So I have folders for different clients, and that way it's easy because I know exactly what it's going to go to. I have folders for admin, Because I used to have different folders for admin depending on the company, but then that was just way too hard to maintain, and I never actually went back to those folders. And I think that's one of the things to always think about when you're doing an email system or a folder system. If you never open some of those folders, then you can probably put those folders together. And a lot of the time, if you're going to try and find something, you're going to search, and then it doesn't matter what folder it's in anyway. So I think being overly organized with email can sometimes make it a less sustainable way to manage yourself.
I might steal cool and meh.
What else is there? So at the moment, when you're going back to the office again, is there anything that you think in terms of lifestyle that you want to change or you're looking forward to as well?
Yeah, I think when the pandemic hit and so many people, started working from home, what they really missed was that they didn't realize they missed was the drive, like that transition moment. Yeah, it's just a moment to prepare your mind. Even if you're listening to a podcast, it was kind of like that ritual that got you into work mode versus home mode. And when you lose that, it's really disorienting, right? Like, especially if you have kids, like the moment I shut down my computer, there's like children asking me for juice and, snacks. And you're just like, wait, like your brain is still in a different place and it's hard to be present. And then I get like all flustered and like, so I am looking forward to, I would have a small commute just to take that time to think about the next thing. Like, okay, now, like I'm full time, like I'm fully here with my kids. Like, okay, now I'm fully here at work.
Yeah, I really believe that the commute is underrated because once I lost the commute, before it used to be I take a train to work. And on that train, like I said, it's me waking up because I'm not awake when I leave the house to go to work. But it gives me that gentle period where I kind of can do what I want. And what I do is use that time to read because it's that dead space. I can't do any work even if I wanted to. I know some people try to use their laptop when they're sitting there on the underground, but that was that nice period all the time where I knew that, especially in London because it's underground, so you can't take calls, you can't do that kind of thing. It was my time to like I'm out of the world, nobody can disturb me, I can just lose myself in a book. And even if it's a drive, it could be you listen to a podcast you love and you get that time to just consume something which you want to consume. And I find it quite difficult now from working for myself and working at home. Is that so behind the camera right now, that's my bed. So it's I wake up in the morning and straight away there's my desk and my office and office space. And I'd really love it. So what I'm going to try and do later in the year is get my own office where I can go there, leave my laptop there, leave my camera equipment, leave my lighting, all of that stuff there. And then when I go home, that's home. That's just life. And really have that better separation because I struggle with that balance of like I don't want to be working all the time, but if my office is in this like 2 meters away from my sofa, it's very difficult to let go.
It's so hard. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's really nice that to get a separate space. But I feel like even if you're not able to do that, just being able to like flee your house the first thing in the morning, if you can, go grab a bagel or something, and then come back, like having that detachment, like I think that's really it's really powerful just to like enter your office. Okay, now I'm sitting down and like now I'm at my desk. Like you could have it kind of serves the same purpose as the commute, right? Just getting out of your house and coming back.
And one thing with that could work for some people as well is if they've got a friend in the local area, and it could be they go for a walk with their friend in the morning, and that just wakes them up. It gives them a nice chat. It takes their mind off work, and then when they come down to start working, then they just focus on work, and they've had a bit of a social interaction, they've had a bit of exercise, and that can work for some people too. And obviously, that's better now with the restrictions hopefully being lesser, where you can spend more time with people.
Yeah, yeah, I like that a lot. And I do notice that on days when I like get out of my house and come back, like I feel a little bit more refreshed and I'm like, okay, like now I could go to work. Just I guess the same way as we put on clothes and get out of our pajamas, and which I only sometimes like, I'm like I feel like my going out clothes versus my staying home clothes are becoming more and more similar. So
What's one mindset shift you think people listening today could make that would make a positive difference to their lives?
think about your death. Think about the question, what if this all goes away? And sometimes when I'm extremely frustrated with, like, my children, if I feel like, there's too much whining, I I kind of get it. I kind of try to shift my brain and thinking like, what if this is the last whine? Like, I could immediately feel myself, loosen up. Like I feel like just such, yeah, like more adoration toward my kids, just calmer, feeling more present. And I think that that's not a morbid, like it sounds morbid, but it's a pretty powerful mindset shift that anyone could do at any moment. Like when we're feeling really overwhelmed or frustrated, just feeling, yeah, just saying like, well, what if this person that I'm frustrated with, or this job that I'm overwhelmed by, or, this house that's so messy, like, what if that thing like went away? And you automatically like switch your mind to like a mindset of gratitude rather than frustration.
It's been a pleasure talking to you today, Michelle. Where can people listening today hear more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, this is such a pleasure talking to you too, Amar. They could find me at my website, michellewu.com. There's a link if you're interested in horizontal parenting, my book. You can also find me on Instagram at WooPics, Woo, Pics, or Twitter at Michelle Wu.
So the final question is, what's one small thing that's brought you joy recently?
I started making things more. Like I started doing beads with my daughter, like just making necklaces. And I just made this really cute mask chain. And it took me quite a while, like a couple hours, because these little beads were so tiny. But I feel like just working with my hands and doing something that like I thought is really colorful. And now like whenever I wear this mask chain at stores, people, comment on it. They're like, yeah, I like your mask chain. And I feel like that small thing has brought me a bit of joy.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps to get the message out further. Wherever you're listening, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and to share on your social media channels. If you want to see more of my work and advice, you can find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.